It is St. Patrick's Day night. Woo! Producer Kyle is propped up over there on the ones and twos.
Yes.
Producer Kyle.
Far from sober.
Comes busting into the doors at like 6:30 p.m., reeking of alcohol and cigarettes, saying, I've been working hard all day. What have you guys been doing?
Yes. Coming up with a rundown.
What have you guys just been sitting here laying, watching basketball all day while I've been out working? It is St. Patty's Day, Tate. My alma mater lost. I think a lot of people want us to start there. That's probably where we would have started, Ohio State losing to Gonzaga. I processed it all. I got over it. And then Michigan hits the buzzer beater. We felt like we felt like today there wasn't a ton of madness in the sense that there just wasn't. I mean, Loyola's like the one story. Loyola beats Tennessee. We got Sister Jean's story. We got the scarves that all the Loyola fans wear. We're excited for Loyola's programs. Their first whatever since whatever year. Like that's like that's just fill in the blank.
The first since, yes.
The first blank
that
since
moment.
blank is just like everyone's gonna run with that with Loyola.
Oh, they just go, oh, I remember. Oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember.
Oh, yeah, that one. That's been the story for Loyola. But outside of that, like you got Villanova, start of the day,
Colin Sexton out.
just blows them out. I mean, it was close at halftime, and then Villanova's like, we're gonna start hitting shots.
Yeah. Have you ever seen 17 threes get hit? Yeah. Let's do it today.
Duke sort of does the same thing to Rhode Island. They're like, we're better than you, and we're going to prove it. They blow Rhode Island out.
Yep. They have Bagley and Carter. And
Kentucky gets a good game from Buffalo. Buffalo hung around. Buffalo probably talked a little too much shit going into that game. I saw like the Buffalo players were saying, we're excited to get out in transition. We don't think Kentucky can run with us. That's not a verbatim quote, but that was the sort of vibe. Just from following the Kentucky sports radio guys on Twitter, that they were like, they love putting that stuff out. They're like, check this out, Big Blue Nation. More people doubting the Cats.
And then they're all like sending it to the players so that they can see it. It's actually like a great grassroots movement that they do with that.
They all tag the players. So Buffalo did give Kentucky a good game. There was a moment in that game, you and I were watching it together, and Buffalo gets a shot.
A wide open three.
They're down 5. They get a 3 in transition, and I stand up and I was like, this has got to go in. I jump out of my seat because if that goes in, they cut it to 2 with like 4 minutes left or something, and we have ourselves a ball game. They miss it. I turn to you, Tate, and I say, that's it. That's game over. That's like a shot. If you're trying to pull off the upset, you got to hit that shot for momentum purposes and all that. They miss it, and then Kentucky goes on like an 8 or 10-0 run and puts the game away, and that was it. So that game was kind of ended up being a dud, even though it was close. And basically, we kind of have that all day. Like there are a lot of close games. Florida, Texas Tech was close. Texas Tech pulls it out. But there wasn't really anything that was like that makes John Rothstein say this is March. We didn't have that moment. And then at the very last, literally the last second of basketball played today, we got the moment. Jordan Poole hitting a 30-footer with a hand in the face. John Beilein's dominance of March continues.
He drew it up.
It's January, then it's February, then it's Beilein. Beautifully drawn up play by John Beilein. I feel like that's the story coming out of this, that Beilein is an absolute genius. He drew up this play that said, throw the ball to the guy who's open, have him dribble it till he gets double teamed, then throw it to another guy and have him shoot a 30-footer with the hand in the face.
He said, Muhammad Ali, come here. Here's the plan. You're going to get this inbound. You're going to drive right into the middle of a trap. And as soon as you get trapped and you feel like there's nothing around you, there's nowhere to throw the ball, and as the clock is winding down, just throw it over your head to the side. Hopefully our freshman Jordan Poole will be there to catch it, and in one instance just throw it up, and it goes in. And he got fouled on the shot.
Yeah.
I mean, Smith fouls him pretty much. They don't call it, obviously. It goes in. All the Houston players just collapse to the floor. There's a dog pile. We get Wagner chasing down Poole.
Yeah.
It was like a game of tag in Germany back in the olden days. Wagner would not give up. He would never, like, Poole was hoping he would stop so he doesn't get tackled by Wagner. That's the worst person to get tackled by. It's like Teskey and Wagner are the two guys you want to avoid. Wagner doesn't stop. He finally gets him in a dog pile. They celebrate. Jordan hits the big shot. And, you know, we got to say this. Beilein said it was an overdose of swag. His freshman, he was ready for it. Jordan Poole, yeah, an overdose of swag, an OD of swag.
Is that like when Mitch McGarry OD'd on marijuana?
Oh,
I love that story.
Wow,
I know I bring that story up a lot. I actually like Mitch McGarry. I just think that story
sponsored by Visine.
When I don't mean to disparage Beilein. I know a lot of Michigan fans get their panties in a bunch when an Ohio State guy comes on talking about Michigan,
especially when they hit a buzzer beater.
I love John Beilein. I think John Beilein is a fantastic coach. But I already know that people are gonna get really excited about this play that he drew up. Where if you actually like saw the play, like if Jordan Poole airballs that shot, the instant reaction is like, that's it, that's the play you drew up. But because he like makes a 30-footer with the hand in the face and kicks his legs out and just like a desperation heave. You know, we're going to be like the January, February beeline thing. Are you worried about Michigan now? Carolina's might probably play Michigan. First have to get by Texas A&M tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not counting my chickens yet, but I will say this about Michigan. They played earlier this year in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, which was great for the ACC Big Ten Challenge. First time the two schools have played each other since how we open this podcast every single time, the timeout. Mm-hmm. North Carolina gets the win. It was at home. But this is a different Michigan team. It was the same way with Ohio State today as they were playing Gonzaga. Even though they already played,
sophomores?
Yeah, everyone's grown up, everyone's matured. Mm-hmm. This is not the same team that you saw early in the season. That's what Michigan's going to be riding on if they do play Carolina. I have to say this about Michigan. This comes from Brian Ives. The last 2 times they hit game winners in the tournament, buzzer beaters like this. 89, they win the title.
Right.
We remember Steve Fisher wins the title.
Right.
1993, they went to the title game and they lost to North Carolina. So I guess that's interesting.
Did Trey Burke not hit a buzzer beater against Kansas? No, there was like a few seconds left. It wasn't a true buzzer beater.
It has to be a game winner. Game winner.
And with like 0 seconds, a true buzzer beater.
The cousin style where it has to be 0-0.
I'm always like more loose with when I call buzzer beaters. I know I'm wrong in this. I'm not saying that people should see it my way.
I think it's really hard for it to be an actual buzzer beater.
Yeah.
If we're going to do this whole technicality where we look back at the replay and add 0.2 or 0.3 or 0.4 or whatever, I feel like that's still a buzzer beater.
I always call like anything under 5 seconds, like immediately I just call it a buzzer beater. And I know I'm wrong. I'm not trying to argue that people should see it my way. I just that's just kind of my default. So
But you would say like the Jordan shot, against Utah in the finals in 98, like
was a buzzer
that's considered a buzzer beater, but it was like 5 seconds left on the clock.
But it wasn't technically a buzzer beater. Yeah. That's
I think that's a new thing. I think we've always just called everything a buzzer beater.
Can we give props to Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman for
Best
passing the ball?
Oh, yes. Okay.
At the end of that play, because there were some vibes. The last few possessions Michigan had, he sort of forced things. Mm-hmm. He did like the senior, it's my time. I'm the senior. I'm not the best player on the team, but like maybe the best. I don't know.
No one's going to say anything to me if I take the shot.
College teams are always weird like that because you always have like the guy who's not the best player, but is at the same time the best player. Like how we always talk about Jalen Brunson with Villanova. He's not actually the best player, but yet like all the Villanova fans are like, he's our best player. I feel that way about Rahman with Michigan, where Wagner's the best player, but like Michigan fans be like, you just don't see what we see. And
he's the heart of this team.
Yeah, like
he may not be the best player, but he's the most important player.
So he has those possessions down at the end of the game where he's kind of going one-on-one, forcing things, running into the defense.
Wide open layup. He gets by his man and just blows it.
Yeah, and so at the end, he catches that ball at half court with 3 seconds left. There was no doubt in my mind he was shooting it. Mm-hmm. You could have thrown all 5 guys on him, and he's shooting it in my mind. So when he passes it, I was like, oh. And then maybe that's why the basketball gods rewarded Michigan.
Do you think Beilein's such a good coach that he had been telling Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman to continue to keep driving and taking shots to play possum? So they were just like, there's no way this guy's going to pass the ball. Because he drew up the play. He had some backside action going on over here, whatever that means. On a final play with 3 seconds left. It's like, we had a little bit of backside action over here. It's like, it looked like he just threw the ball to the guy that was open, and he chucked it, and it went in.
It looked just kind of like a free-for-all. Why didn't Houston put anybody on the ball, by the way? Mm-hmm. Have we learned nothing from
Can we guard the inbounds pass?
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. That makes it pretty hard, If there's just someone with his hands up.
Have we learned nothing from this? When is I don't know.
Even if that little mini-me Rob Gray was out there with his hands up at the inbounds, it'd make it a little bit tougher.
Do you want to take some time to I guess we don't need to, but I should. One of the good things about Houston losing now is I think America doesn't have to have the uncomfortable conversation about whether we hate Rob Gray's little brother.
Yeah.
It is his little brother, right?
I think so.
I mean, it says little.
He has to be related to him.
We weren't paying that much attention. I kind of zoned out after they showed him like 1,000 times, but I thought it said like little brother on the back of his.
I mean, it has to be. He looks like him. I mean, he's got the same hairdo. He's got the whole, the whole get up.
Because I think if Houston goes to the Sweet 16, we see his little brother 1,000 times.
If it's not his little brother, I definitely hate him. Like absolutely hate him. But if it's family, then I understand.
We would have definitely reached our saturation point with him if we haven't already. I got to call out CBS and Turner in general for
talk about all the saturation points.
The
every
crowd
single game.
shots.
Yeah,
like we get it. These players have families. These coaches have families. Calm down.
Yeah,
just calm down with it. Like Sister Jean, I'm all for. Sister Jean of Loyola. You're not. She's no one's. I mean, she might be someone's family. She's got family of her own, I'm sure. But She's not a player's mom or a coach's mom or whatever.
She's just a sister. She's just a chaplain.
She's Sister Jean, yeah.
And I tried really hard to find some pictures of Sister Jean back in the old days. She's wiped the internet clean. We don't know what Sister Jean was up to. So if anyone can find some old dirt on Sister Jean, pass that along to us.
They're showing Eric Musselman's daughter when Nevada's playing. They were showing Mike Dom's parents.
Well, not only that, Musselman's daughter got the interview with Jamie Radall doing the whole "I want to be a sportscaster." You know, I want to. This is my dream to be you one day. She got like a whole like.
The kids are the worst,
yeah.
and I don't hold on, calm down, don't judge me yet. I'm saying the kids are the worst in the sense that they put the kids on the television. Not that the kids are bad.
Yes.
Because inevitably, what we're setting up for is when the team loses. Then you're like, hey, you know that kid we've introduced you to and brought you along on this ride this whole time?
Now they're crying.
Now watch them cry.
Yes.
This is what it was all building towards.
Which is messed up.
That's the messed up. That's what I mean by it's the worst. Because they did that to Rob Gray's brother tonight. As soon as the shot hits, they show him and he's like dejected. It's like,
how about
eat
Kevin?
Shit, kid. You know, like that's what the cameramen are saying. Like, ha 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 ha.
He was doing the O face of like, oh.
You thought we were making you a star? No, bitch. We were setting this up for you to cry. Gotcha. Welcome to the real world, kid.
Kevin Willard's wife too. That was even tougher. Like Seton Hall Carrington just kept coming down, like hitting threes out of nowhere. They get that bad. It was the illegal screen that they call, and then that ends up ending the game basically. But they just wouldn't go away in this Kansas game, and they kept showing Willard's wife, and she's like going through like ups and downs,
it's
like
enough.
oh Carrington, oh
get it.
oh. It's like I feel bad for her right now. I don't need to see her be upset and go through this emotional roller coaster.
At this point, we know how wives and parents and kids. We know what they're feeling.
Invested.
Here's probably how they're feeling, Tate. If their team is winning, they're probably very happy.
Yes.
If their team is not winning, they're probably very nervous. And if the game is over and their team is lost, they're probably very sad. Mm-hmm. We can fill in the blanks from there.
Yeah.
Just show us a picture of the kid. Just show like a still picture from their third grade class picture that they got earlier in the year. Just put a picture up there and be like, this is what Eric Musselman's daughter looks like, folks. Now imagine, as this game progresses, what she might be feeling. And then we don't have to show her. You don't actually have to show her crying. And then when she's in high school, like all her friends are making fun of her. And
yeah, you don't want your kid to be a meme, you know?
No.
Yeah, like get in, go to class. Everyone's like, look at this. Look at you crying.
Look at
you crying. Just putting it in your face. Oh, it's so sad.
But Michigan gets the big win. That's awesome. Excited for friend of the program, Duncan Robinson, who fouled out in a very.
We should say we had lost faith, or I should say I lost faith.
Duncan, this is Tate talking. Go ahead.
Yes,
continue.
This is me. This is my own opinion. I thought that Houston had this in the bag just because, I expect teams
because
to make
they were
free
winning
throws.
and there wasn't a lot of time left.
Yeah, exactly, as you'd expect. So I was already plotting the whole, we're trying to find someone. We're trying to find our Jay Wright, our Tom Crean, to get kicked out of the tournament, then come on and give us analysis on what's going on. And, like, how do you feel right now if you're this person right now, this moment? Go back to that time when you were sad.
Yeah.
Now tell us how sad this person now feels.
Yeah.
I wanted that person, and I wanted Duncan to be that person. So I was getting a little bit excited,
Yeah.
And then all this plays out and all this happens. And now he's going to come to L.A. anyway.
They're coming to L.A. Yeah, that's the subplot in all this. Is, Michigan has advanced to the Los Angeles Regional, where Tate and I have been all month, and we're going to go to the regional game. Are we going to go to the regional game if North Carolina loses?
No, we're still going to go to the regional game because Michigan is it's
friend of the
big
program.
deal. Yeah.
We like Michigan. I like this Michigan team.
I would have gone if Samson won too, just to see Samson in person, just so I could tell my kids.
You would have gone to fight Rob Gray's brother. Give that kid a wedgie. Fuck this kid.
Give him a swirly.
So we're gonna go to the Michigan game. You wanted Duncan to be our Jay Wright to come on and kind of give the analysis.
It's still possible.
But yeah, Michigan is going to Los Angeles. North Carolina, we'll see if they're going to Los Angeles.
Texas A&M tomorrow.
Gonzaga is going to Los Angeles, and I guess the people probably want to hear me crying.
Let's talk about it.
They want to hear my tears flow about Ohio State. We did a little video after it happened. The Ringer people shoved the camera in my face and were like, "Talk about this. It's funny." And I was like, "It's not really funny right now, actually." But I said on the pod after we beat South Dakota State that I expected this, and I wasn't just saying that because I was trying to, whatever the word is. I'm not smart enough. I'm not a writer. I don't come up with the words. I wasn't like trying to build up a wall and pretend like I didn't care. So when it happened, I wasn't trying. This wasn't an illusion. I was trying to put forth. I genuinely thought Gonzaga was going to win. I even had Gonzaga winning in my bracket that I filled out. So I go into this game like saying we're just happy to be here. If Ohio State makes it close in the end, that'd be awesome. It'd be a respectable season. Gonzaga jumps out to a 15-0 lead. I kind of just give up on the game. I changed the channel because it's clearly not working.
And it was a gut-wrenching, 15-0 because every single Ohio State shot was a point-blank layup that went all the way down and came out.
At the under 16 timeout in the first half, we had more flagrant fouls than points.
Mm-hmm.
We had been called for 1 flagrant foul, and we had 0 points.
Wesson,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? This is great, actually, because I knew we weren't going to win. So it's great to just get our asses kicked, and I don't have to even get emotionally invested at all. And then we come back. I get sucked in, and quickly a game that I thought I wasn't going to care about, I cared about a lot. And then we take the lead, and then we lost the lead, and we lost the game. And that's pretty much the story, Tate. And the long story short, I ended up being very, very sad.
And it was about 6 minutes left in the game, which is the time where you finally feel like some team's going to make a run, and this is going to be the defining factor of the game. So they make this run. There's like 6 minutes left in the game. They get the 5-point lead. Tate Bates Diop, your boy, KBD, hits the big three. You jump up. You're celebrating. I'm happy because I'm like, I still have a podcast. Titus will podcast tonight. Titus will continue not to threaten my life. Kyle, meanwhile, is talking about God knows what on the couch.
Kyle comes is rolling in.
He's just talking about random things that are going on. Has no idea the game's going on. Titus is. I could see it in your face.
Kyle,
you're about to kill him.
All-time classic Kyle moment is coming in. So I had changed.
He's talking
the channel.
about the Subway wraps. He's like, you guys hear about these Subway wraps? They're pretty good.
All-time classic Kyle moment where I had changed the channel because Ohio State was getting their asses kicked at halftime. So at halftime we changed it. We had multiple TVs going. I was just trying to work on some superstition stuff. So I changed the channel. I'm not watching Ohio State game. Second half starts and I see the score. Whatever game we were watching, they
Tennessee.
have the Ohio. Yeah, okay. So we're watching the end of the Tennessee game, and they're showing the score of the Ohio State in the second half is like Ohio State's chipping into the lead.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
cutting it down to 5.
Like, crap,
now we're 3. Yeah.
I'm not going to change it. Like, whatever we're doing is working. So I decided I'm not changing the channel back to the Ohio State game. And then Kyle comes walking in from the bar. Like, the cigarette and the alcohol smell, you can just smell it from a mile away. And then, like, 3 minutes later, Kyle comes walking in. And then the first thing he says is like, "Isn't Ohio State playing? You're not watching the game, Titus?" And I'm like, dude, so I start trying to explain to Kyle what superstition is. And then he looks at the score and he's like, "Oh, they're losing. Oh, what happened?" I'm like, "Kyle, not now." And I'm trying to explain superstition. He doesn't understand that we were getting our asses kicked. I don't know. Just the whole situation. Read the room, Kyle. Seriously.
It's all right, Kyle. You did your best. He did his best.
Yeah.
Are you over it though?
I am
feel
over
okay?
it. It's bad for content. I think that's the most sad part.
We wanted Ohio State.
We wanted
to come
Ohio
to LA.
State. Yeah, North Carolina. The people wanted. You wanted it. The people wanted it. They wanted the Ohio State North Carolina game. Just. We just wanted to see what that would look like if those two played each other this season, and we never got a chance to see those two teams.
But we could have been
there.
there first row in New Orleans, but we weren't. I do think it's kind of fitting, though, and I know you're probably not going to like this, but the first loss Ohio State has of the season is a 27-point loss to Gonzaga in November.
Right.
And you probably watched that game at that point, and you're like, this team's not going to the NCAA tournament. This is going to be a rough year. So I think if I were to tell you on November 24th after that game, hey, Ohio State's going to go to the NCAA tournament. They're going to make it the second round. They're going to lose to Gonzaga. They're going to have the Big Ten Player of the Year. KBD's going to have this great season. I think you would have taken it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to see our growth. We started the season as a team that got our asses kicked by Gonzaga. We ended the season as a team that kind of got our asses kicked by Gonzaga.
I tried to help.
So, yeah, it was a great year, man. It was great to watch us.
Wasn't by 27, though.
Zach Norvell.
Yeah, we should talk about Gonzaga.
I think I'm not going to pretend like I'm alone in this. That I think every fan base feels like they're tortured. I'm not going to say like I wouldn't dare say like woe is me as an Ohio State fan. It was kind of interesting though how like Ohio State versus Gonzaga. I clearly think Ohio State was the underdog in this game. Not just in the sense that obviously they were a 4.5 point underdog, but just the whole vibe. Like it felt like we never really had much of a chance. But the whole vibe around the game, like, it's weird to say the words that Ohio State is an underdog against Gonzaga because, like, even 5 years ago, that would seem, I don't know, that unfathomable. So that's cool for Gonzaga's program that they've reached a point where they're going up against a pretty good Ohio State team with a Big Ten Player of the Year, and it's like, yeah, we should beat these guys. And
they become almost like a pseudo blue blood, I guess. Like, they're like the Duke mid-major, like everyone's like Gonzaga is such a great team, and they've made 4 straight Sweet 16s now.
Yeah,
and, Mark Few's made 8 Sweet 16s.
So I'm not gonna pretend like I'm tortured. I'm not even gonna pretend like Ohio State is alone in this. But man, it would really be nice for guys to not just go nuts against my team. It'd be really nice for like Mike Dahm to not just like one of these. It'd be cool one of these NCAA tournament games if just.
You're just cold.
You're just cold. If Zach Norvell just like didn't have it tonight, like just not my night.
If he didn't hit 6 threes and have 28 and 11.
Yeah, if he's not hitting step backs in the most pivotal moment of the game, and then they're like career high, and then Rui Hachimura hits a 3 with the shot clock running down, and the announcers are like, oh my God, he's only hit 4 threes all year. Where's this coming from? It's like, you don't need to say that. We get it.
Yeah.
I knew as soon as
he's
shot the ball,
something he's never done before.
We get it.
Yeah.
And, again, I know that's really petty, and every other fan base is like, yeah, that happens to us all the time as well. I get that, but it's not about you right now. It's about me. My team is the one that lost.
And you're
but
hurt.
No, it was a good year. Congrats to Gonzaga fans. I like Gonzaga. I've always liked Gonzaga. I do think they had a huge advantage playing 20 minutes from campus. That's not going to be talked about. Some Ohio State fans might want to complain about the refs. I'm classier than that. I'm not going to do that. At Ohio State, we have class. We don't do what Hachimura does, where he dunks with 4 seconds left instead of running out the clock. We're classy. We might have flagrant fouls. We might try to start fights with guys and get technical fouls. But other than that, we're pretty classy, Tate. So
Once you get
I'm not going
past
to complain
all
about the refs. Yeah.
I want to say for Gonzaga, too, when people look at this team, I think they still are thinking about the guys like Perkins and Silas and, Jonathan Williams, the whole group of guys that came back from last year's team that are still on this team this year. But you watch them today, and Hachimura and Norvell are the 2 guys on this team that are super scary, especially Hachimura. He had those 4 huge blocks in this game. The big block on KBD late when Ohio State had like one final push just to see if they could stay in the game. He has a huge block, and people freak out about that. I just think this Gonzaga team, people are still looking at them from the lens of, it's the same team from last year minus Nigel Williams-Goss and Zach Collins and Karnowski or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, no, like Hachimura he could be a star. I mean, he could do everything out there. And Norvell, if he shoots like this, Gonzaga's like a real contender. And I don't know. You have to give him props.
The terrifying thing is I didn't think Perkins was particularly great. He didn't play bad. It just like
no, he's a non-factor in this game.
Yeah, I wasn't really scared of Perkins at any point.
Even though he got compared to John Stockton 2 or 3 times in this game, which
he played okay, but he wasn't like I guess the first time we played Gonzaga, Perkins was like out of his mind, so maybe that's part of it. Tilly, I didn't even notice him out there. Killian Tilly.
He had that 1 3-point play. That was it.
Yeah. So that's the terrifying thing if you're looking at Gonzaga, like projecting forward. Like if they put everything they have, all these pieces, if they're all like clicking at the same time.
Yeah, they had 90 points in this game, and they didn't.
Yeah,
Perkins
and it felt
didn't play
like
well. Yeah.
So, what else we need to hit on?
I think we should just hit on the top 2 teams, the way the day started, which is Villanova and Duke.
I think so.
The first team we should talk about, the Alabama-Villanova game. They come out of the gates early, and this was the 8-9 game that I thought Virginia Tech was going to be in this game, and I thought they had a real chance at upsetting Villanova. And then I watched this game today, and I don't know why we even think that's possible, because when you look at this Villanova team, and we joke about it, it's, we're trying to figure out if it's Bridges or Brunson or Booth or Spellman, who's the guy on this team, who's the face of this program right now. But it just doesn't matter. They just make the extra pass. They are all under control. Brunson in this game was pretty much a non-factor because DiVincenzo in the first half basically decided it's my basketball game. Like he had 18 points in the first half. He's taking all these charges. People are making all the jokes. Dante's. I did the Dante's peak.
People did
I did the Dante's peak. People are doing Dante's Inferno. It's whatever you want to do. I think Dante's peak is a little bit better, but I'm not going to brag about it.
Dante's Culpepper.
Yes.
Like
Dante's
that,
cold peppers. Yeah.
Dante's cold pepper. Yeah, like maybe he's not playing
like
well.
a sponsored thing that he does.
Dante's hot, like when Dante's on fire, it's like Dante's hot peppers.
Yeah.
But then now we got his cold peppers.
DiVincenzo.
We'll workshop that one.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll do some work on that. But anyways, Villanova has DiVincenzo, and then they come in the second half, and you're like, okay, Dante, they're going to keep this thing rolling. And it's like, no, now it's Bridges' time to just take over this game. He goes off, and it's DiVincenzo, Bridges, just take over this entire game. Alabama has no chance. They hit 17 threes, like I mentioned, which is,
there's no stopping that.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with that. If a team hits 17 threes, you're not going to win a game. They look unstoppable right now. Charles Barkley said they were the best passing team he's seen. Granted, he's only seen 4 or 5 games. But in those, from what he's seen, I think they are one of the best passing teams that's been around in a while.
Chuck just changes his mind every game he sees. Like, that's the best team I've seen all year. And then the next game he's like, no, that is the best team I've seen all year. Damn, I really like this team.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no stopping threes. Which, as an aside, I think this is – I actually believe we're going to see another – going back to the 16-1 upset, I think this is like Villanova is just blowing it out with the threes. Like, they've fully committed to shooting threes. And it always freaks me out because you know, I know that's the way basketball is going in general. I know that like the NBA, the analytics, they all say shoot threes. Threes are worth more than twos. You should shoot them, therefore, more than twos, or whatever the numbers say. All of that makes sense to me. The concern I always have with like college teams that shoot threes is that you aren't the Warriors. You don't have the talent to continuously hit all these threes. So I always get like a little skeptical with teams that shoot too many threes, and it's not because I'm like some old-fashioned guy that doesn't understand math. I get it. It's just that I think you're forecasting, you know, when you're dealing with a single elimination tournament, it only takes one off night. And also when you're dealing with amateurs, maybe they're amateurs, maybe they're not. We don't know. But when you're dealing with quote-unquote amateurs and young kids, young men, it depends on what point you're trying to make, whether you call them young men or young kids. But when you're dealing with guys like that, like they can't consistently. Like you get an NBA guy, he's going to consistently hit shots that if he's wide open, he's going to hit like at the same percentage over and over. You could get like Mikal Bridges on some night. He's wide open. He just can't hit to save his life. Mm-hmm. And it's just like there's no explanation. It's just like he just doesn't have it. And those sorts of things happen. So I always get scared about the 3-point shooting, but that seems to be where things are going. That's where like all the teams are pushing towards that.
And this is what Villanova does.
And this is Villanova. And this is just like who they are, and they look great. But back to the original point, like I sort of think this is as basketball progresses towards that, because you see like Villanova when they get hot, there's literally nothing anybody can do to stop 3-point shooting. If a team is hitting threes, you're screwed. It's over. That's going to lead, I think, to more 16-over-1s because it's just you're going to get these smaller schools, all these kids that are being raised in the generation of Steph Curry 5-10 years from now that are just growing up just bombing threes, and they're not tall enough, not fast enough to get recruited by the big schools, but they end up on these smaller schools. They make their NCAA tournament, and they all get hot on the same night. I think we might see like Baltimore County did to Virginia. Yeah. I think that's what we're sort of.
It's like a new revolution in basketball.
That's kind of what I was like piecing them all together. The Villanova thing on top of the Virginia, because Virginia lost last night. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, they did to a 16 seed. I remember that was crazy. I just want to say this: Villanova takes 41 threes in this game. They're 17 of 41, and that's not a great.
Rockets fans are like, that's it?
Yeah, like 41. Wow, that's just a normal night. Yeah, that's our average. I just think that's crazy. And even as I was watching the game, I didn't feel like they had taken 41 threes because it all felt like good shots within the offense. The only times that I feel like Villanova's in trouble when Brunson is forcing it a little bit, or one of those guys, it feels like they have to do a little bit more ISO ball. But when they're playing together, I mean, Booth didn't even hit a three in this game, and Phil Booth is one of the most important players on this team. Yeah. Pascal hit a couple big threes in this game. Every single Spellman hit a couple threes in this game. As they move the ball around, you're like, oh my God, all 5 of these guys. Because when they won the title, like Etchefu's not taking threes. You know, maybe he could every once in a while, I guess. But at the end of the day, he was a true traditional big man that you can put in the middle of 4-round-1.
Chris Jenkins shot threes for that team, didn't he?
He did. He hit one. He hit one big one.
I remember one that he made.
Yeah, I can't believe that happened.
At this point, in all seriousness, do you think this tournament is Villanova and Duke versus the field at this point? Based on what we've seen so far, based on what we know about the teams, Kentucky's playing very, very well. Other teams are playing well, not to take anything away from them, but like Villanova and Duke look so dominant tonight. I think a lot of people thought they were great teams anyway coming into the tournament. Would you classify this as Villanova and Duke versus everyone else at this point?
I think it's Villanova versus everyone else. And I know people are going to be like, well, of course you say that because Duke or whatever. But I think Rhode Island today was a perfect example of if you have Bagley and Carter against Rhode Island, who has no big men really to really match up with that team, they just get killed and look terrible. I think Kansas is going to have a problem if they end up facing Duke because it's DeSosa and Azubuike going against those two guys. I don't know how much we can trust DeSosa. He's had some good games, but he still hasn't been there very long. But I just think Villanova has every single piece. This team doesn't look scared of any moment. I think they're kind of over the hump of.
So sorry, Villanova fans. Sorry your team's going to lose in the Sweet 16. You just got the kiss of death from Tate Frazier. You played that so wrong. You're supposed to be like, Titus, pains me to say it, but this is Duke's year.
No.
Do you want to redo that? Should we cut that, Kyle?
Yeah, let's cut that.
Should we edit that? And
let's do it. Let's do it the right way. With this whole tournament's played out. I did say earlier today that I thought it was Villanova and Duke, but I've come around on that.
I'll do it for you. I think Duke. I said at the start that this felt like a Duke tournament. I'm sticking by that. You can look at my bracket that I filled out if you don't believe me, that I have Duke beating Carolina. And I didn't even do that to get under your skin. I just like looked at each matchup and I was like, yeah, I feel like they'll win. It feels like a Duke year to me. Bagley is just this guy is like somehow underappreciated but talked about all the time at the same time. I feel like there's some sort of thing where you just think that he just dunks the ball. I don't really know. Like it's like he's sort of under eight. Like he's not the number one pick, but he's also like not really the national player of the year. So he's just kind of like there as like a really good player, but no one really knows. You know, it's like Aiton's probably the number one pick. Brunson or Trae Young or Ayton is probably national player of the year, and Bagley's just kind of like we all know he's good. We all talk about him, but like.
But you're saying we talk. I feel like we talk about Bagley as if he's like Wendell Carter, which he's a pretty good player. You know, he's got some great things going for him, but he's not transcendent talent. But Bagley is a transcendent talent. I'll
put it this way: I've brought up this point or tried to frame it in this context all season. This is the year of blank, and I've that's kind of been my case for Trae Young. That for him winning National Player of the Year is that I always look back on this year and say this was the year of Trae Young. And that's kind of why I argued against the Jalen Brunson National Player of the Year pick, is that nobody's going to look back on 2018 and say, like, oh, yeah, that was the year Jalen Brunson took college basketball by storm. That's just not going to happen. I think at this point, maybe you would argue it's going to be the year that the 16 beat the 1. Maybe that's what people will look back on. But as far as like an individual level, if you're looking for one player, I think it's still the Trae Young thing. I think maybe Ayton, you could maybe sort of, but probably not because he played on the West Coast and this team disappeared and all that sort of stuff. But I think Bagley has a chance that if these next couple weeks play out, like they probably
if he does the Anthony Davis run, where he is the best player on Duke's team and they make a run and they win the national title.
He's got a very real chance for this to be the year of Marvin Bagley.
I agree with that.
He's out of his mind. He knows underappreciated part of his game. He knows how to pimp a dunk. Unbelievable how this guy every dunk hits the back of his neck. With the ball,
he cocks
dunks
it back,
kind of like does the pull up with his legs, but it's also like not super flashy. Like you don't like crusty old white guys watching aren't like give that man a technical. He's hot dogging it.
Well, he doesn't. He has no facial expression.
But yet he's still somehow hot dogging it. Like he straddles that line so well. I love Marvin Bagley, and I know you do too. You have to say you love Marvin Bagley.
I would never say I love
Hold on.
No.
You said Duke guys that are one and done. They're not there.
I said I don't hate them. I didn't say I love them.
You loved them.
Saying I don't hate someone.
Okay, I'll say I love him. He's fun to watch.
He's an amazing basketball player. I think if I'm Danny Ferry and I let him wear 35, which I thought was an egregious act, I can't believe that Danny Ferry did that. I think he's earned it. You know, I think leading the ACC in points and rebounds. That was.
Are you kidding me? Marvin Bagley should be allowing Danny Ferry to still have his 35.
I still can't believe that.
What are you talking about?
I can't believe that happened.
That's Marvin Bagley's number.
I know, which is that's the whole problem.
Danny Ferry
thing.
should be like on his hands and knees begging Marvin Bagley to wear 35.
Oh, I can't believe it. And Marvin Bagley is now the 35 at Duke that everyone.
They should have had all the Duke legends lining up like. It should have been, like on The Voice, where
Kiss the ring,
where all the judges are like fighting for, please wear my number, and you got like Grant Hill, like please wear my number, Marvin, and Battier's out there, no, we're 31, and
he makes him do the chant.
Yeah,
who's your daddy? Bagley needs a chant. Bagley needs something around him, There's like there's no story, there's no nothing. There's nothing to galvanize people around him.
His story
He's
is
not hateable. Like,
okay, his story is this. His story is this.
What?
This is a kid who grew up on the West Coast, who reclassified, who bravely decided to take a chance on going to college all the way across the country. He skipped his senior year of high school, so we know he takes his studies seriously because he very academically gifted, Marvin Bagley.
Yes.
A lot of guys graduate in 4 years of college. It only took him 3. Graduated, reclassified, went to one of the most prestigious private schools in the country. That's his story. He's a true student athlete. We appreciate that. Never says a word. Does America even know what this man's voice sounds like? No. He just goes about his business, does his thing, and he's a very, very good basketball player, and that's all we need.
I think he could end up being the number 1 pick.
Really?
I think if they win the national title and he does what he's been doing, because it hasn't quite hit people yet. That's what I mean with Bagley. There's been no moment that everyone's been like what we had with Trae Young, what we had with Ayton in the Pac-12 tournament. Those last 2 games of the Pac-12 tournament, everyone was like, I need to keep an eye on Ayton. Bagley's never had that moment where everyone, because the ACC tournament they didn't do it obviously. No one's all been locked in, eyes on Bagley, and now that they're going to move throughout this tournament, Michigan State's going to be the first game. If he dominates Jaren Jackson in that game and Nick Ward and Miles Bridges and all those guys, that's when people will really say, okay, we got to really look at Bagley and say, what do we have here? Because he's something else. I mean, the guy bounces off the ground like quicker than anyone I've seen in a long time.
This is hilarious. You're not wrong, by the way, but it's so funny how much stock gets put in the NCAA tournament. That like you could have a whole season worth of data, like on that, and everyone's like, well,
because it's the stage.
Yeah, it's like the biggest stage,
But he does it on the
true
big
for
stage.
the players. It's like you can help your draft stock if you have like one good game in the NCAA tournament, but you've been garbage all year.
But you can even see it today, like with the guy like Terrell in Rhode Island, as he was playing Duke, he's saying to himself, you can see this in his head. He was missing all these shots. He couldn't make a shot in the first half, and he was pressing because he's thinking to himself, everybody is watching me play Duke right now.
Yeah.
This is when I have to get my stock up because everyone's going to remember my name if I play good against Duke.
Rob Gray helped his draft stock. Kata Bates Diop is like
they're just like, I have to do it now. It's like I'm locked in.
It's so wild though. It's like you're playing 1 or 2 games and that's it. The same with the coaches. It's like, well, Tony Bennett, you wipe the floor with the ACC. You know the ACC. Every coach in this conference is a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest coaches of all time. It feels like we sent 9 teams to the NCAA tournament. Hell of a season, but you lost your first game, so you suck. I'm sorry to say that. I don't know. It's just funny. It's
not wrong or right, but it's just kind of what
like it
what
just
happens.
invalidates. It's like, why the hell do you and I even follow the rest of the season? What's the point of talking about the rest of the season? Nobody gives a shit. They just want to talk about the tournament. Anything else before we go? Wrap this thing up.
Tomorrow will be fun. There's a bunch of games tomorrow. That we're going to be here. Obviously, we're going to do the podcast again. I'm very worried about Robert Williams. I just want to say that on the record right now. I'm very, very worried about Robert Williams because this is one of those games where Robert Williams puts up 25 and 15. He's back in to be a top 10 pick.
I got my eye on Isaac Haas. You see this news? What's going on there? He might be back.
Let's be honest. When Haas went down, I did not believe for a second he was not going to play. He's just that kind of guy. I mean, we said that it was about his future that they're worried about. There may not be a future. This is now. This is the present. This is Isaac Haas's time. Get back in there. Use that forearm. If Gronk can play with whatever is going on in his arm, just give him that. Give him a Terminator arm, whatever it takes. Just get out there and elbow some people.
Get Isaac Haas out there.
He's fine.
Yeah, interesting development. There were some people that were already sounding off saying Purdue might actually be better without him.
Let's stop with that.
It spreads the floor for him. I don't know. Either way, it's a win for whether you're on the side of like they're better without Isaac Haas or they're better with him. Like if he actually plays but he's limited in his role, you can like take either side. You can be like, see, they struggled today or they want. Yeah, I don't know. You can spin it any way you want. That's the beauty of this. But if you miss the news, Isaac Haas might actually play. By the time people actually listen to this, Purdue actually has the early game tomorrow, so by the time people listen to this, they'll know whether
it's the first game tomorrow. And then we get everyone watch out for Izzo versus Boeheim tomorrow. Ooh. We get the Tom Izzo has to take on the Syracuse team, a team that somehow is always in the second round of the tournament, on the verge of making a run, even though they've had
always
a terrible
on the bubble,
season.
always.
O'Shea Brissett. Everyone is like the whole team just decides to come together at one point in the season, right around the tournament. Somehow they get in the tournament every single year. One last note that I have. This is about the NIT. I know this is an NCAA tournament podcast. This is St. Patrick's Day, as Kyle knows. Penn State, Tony Carr. It's a race.
Don't say that name anymore.
It's a race to 70. He hits a big 3 today in Irish country against Notre Dame. Bonzi goes out hurt. Bonzi gets hurt in this game, so we may not be able to see him at the 3-on-3. Matt Farrell looks lost. He gets swatted around a few times in this Penn State game. Tony Carr takes over. It's the end of the Irish on St. Patrick's Day. It's the end of an era. That team with Pfluger and Bonzi and Farrell, a team that's been around, it feels like, for 4 or 5 years, maybe even 15.
Yeah, that's how college works. Yeah, you play for 4 years.
Well, sometimes you get 4 or 5, depending. If you're Greg Paulus. Yeah, so I just wanted to say it's the end of the era.
No, I'm glad you did. Yeah, we love those Notre Dame guys. They're fun to watch. They're
just on St. Patrick's Day. I mean,
St. Patrick's Day, no less.
It just hurt. It was the first thing I saw this morning. I turned out the Villanova game.
Are you following the NIT at all?
Yeah, I'm following all the NIT.
Yeah,
it's great. The quarters are great.
They had my attention at the very beginning. I saw that the one guy, who was the guy? Was it Metu for USC that was sitting out the games and everyone's like ripping him apart? And
Chimezi,
I mean, get on the guy for sitting out. I get it because you're saying like you're still playing for a trophy. You're letting your team down. But I think at the point, and I know this is a tangent that no one asked for me to go on, but
literally, including Kyle, who is saying, like, "Please, God,
Kyle's
wrap
like,
it
it's
up."
still St. Patrick's Day. There's more beers to be drunk. But I think at the point that you start messing with the NIT rules, and for those who are out of the loop, the NIT has now become the testing ground for. They're going to quarters. They're going to like shot clock.
There's no 1-and-1.
Yeah, there's no 1-on-1. They're messing with all these rules. So basically, the powers that be are saying we don't actually care about the NIT because, and as proof, we're going to just throw experimental rules out there. I don't think you can then criticize a player for saying, well, I don't care about the NIT then. I don't know. I just want to get that point across.
It's sort of like bowl season, you know? It's like, I don't care. Like, I'm basically just doing this for you to make a little bit of extra revenue, I guess. I guess, because you sold the rights on TV. But the good news is Scott Drew is playing against Ben Howland tomorrow on the NIT. So everyone tune in for that.
We'll find out for Scott Drew winning the NIT would be the greatest thing. That would get me to watch it. I'm going to start watching it.
Scott Drew, a pretty good coach.
No, when the NIT bracket came out, I got into it. I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. A lot of, the Penn State. You love Temple.
Marquette's been great in the tournament. Marcus Howard,
Marquette's
Oregon.
Fun to watch.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard.
There are a lot of great teams. Fun to, Scott Drew. We like talking about him. But then it started, and I was like, yeah, it's the NIT.
It's just tough, and it's on ESPN during the middle of the game, so you can flick back and forth. You can make it work.
Yeah, that's it. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you guys for listening. I know there's a ton of content coming out. Like it's hard to listen to a pod, watch all these games. Keep checking your feed for new stuff. We're gonna be pumping them out. That's it. You got anything else, Tate?
No, I want to get back to number one though. So keep ratings and reviews. We need them, please.
We need those.
This is our time. This is March. This is our only time. This is the only time that people will listen to us.
Yeah,
please.
We'll do anything.
Whatever it takes.
That's it. And until next time, stay the crew.